SITREP World Briefing for July 9, 2026. The United States launched a new round of strikes on Iran after President Donald Trump declared the ceasefire over, extending a second straight night of direct military exchanges across the Persian Gulf region. U.S. officials said the operation was intended to curb threats linked to the Strait of Hormuz, and French and British reporting said American forces hit about 90 military targets or sites in Iran, including positions along the coastline. Iran responded with retaliatory strikes across the Gulf, with reports saying Tehran targeted U.S.-linked bases or facilities in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and other Gulf states after the latest American bombardment. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said the attacks were a response to fresh U.S. action. The renewed fighting immediately fed through to energy markets and maritime traffic, because the Strait of Hormuz handles a large share of global oil shipments and is the narrow gateway between the Gulf and the Arabian Sea. Reporting said traffic through the strait had dropped dramatically after the latest attacks began, while oil prices, which had surged on the collapse of the ceasefire, later stabilized as traders assessed whether the violence would widen further. The market reaction showed that even limited military action around Hormuz can reverberate quickly through shipping insurance, tanker routing, and the price of crude sold worldwide in U.S. dollars. Singapore police charged a 40-year-old man, identified as Ko Jae Xiang, over false bomb threats that targeted Parliament House and prompted an official response at the seat of government. The charge sheet centered on an email sent to Prime Minister Lawrence Wong that allegedly claimed a bomb had been placed at Parliament House at 1 Parliament Place and instructed authorities to evacuate the premises immediately. Police said officers conducted thorough checks after the threats, including systematic sweeps of Parliament House, the surrounding area, and the HTX building, and found no items of security concern. The inclusion of HTX, the home team's technology and science agency, widened the case beyond a single email and placed it within Singapore's broader security framework, where false bomb threats are treated as serious offenses because they can disrupt public institutions, divert emergency resources, and test protective measures around government infrastructure. Nigeria's presidency ordered an investigation after a fictitious agency presented as part of the presidential office in Abuja, Nigeria, allegedly used forged documents to gain access to government funds. President Bola Tinubu demanded an explanation of how the body was purportedly created inside the presidency, while officials focused on allegations that Adeni Adeyemi forged a letter of appointment to make the organization appear legitimate. The case has drawn attention because the presidency sits at the center of federal authority and budget control, making any fraudulent access to official papers or public money a serious test of internal safeguards. The alleged scheme has raised wider questions about document verification, spending controls, and oversight inside Nigeria's federal institutions. In a country where presidential approvals, agency mandates, and budget releases can determine whether public programs operate, the use of a forged appointment document to unlock state resources points to vulnerabilities beyond one suspect or one office. By ordering a formal probe in Abuja, Tinubu's administration is signaling that it wants to establish how the fake agency moved through official channels, who authorized the payments, and whether additional officials or intermediaries helped the operation gain credibility within government systems. U.S. President Donald Trump used the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, to criticize allies for what he portrayed as insufficient support for his confrontation with Iran. He also revived his push for U.S. control of Greenland, broadening a dispute that already included complaints aimed at allies such as Spain, and shifting attention from NATO's usual agenda of collective defense, military spending, and deterrence. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte responded by arguing that the alliance remained cohesive, describing Trump's remarks as a family argument, and saying he was 100% convinced of the U.S. president's commitment to NATO. Trump's renewed Greenland demand also drew a direct political counterpoint from Greenland itself, where people in Nuuk rejected the idea that Washington should determine the Arctic island's future. Greenland sits at the center of Arctic strategy, sea routes, and mineral competition, while NATO is trying to maintain a common line on security priorities. Shell stepped up its push for UK approval of the Jackdaw gas field in the North Sea after submitting a revised environmental and climate case that argued the project would not materially influence climate change. The new assessment was required after the industry regulator found that parts of an earlier submission had not been adequately addressed, forcing the company to return with a fresh case as ministers weigh whether to allow development to proceed. Shell linked the project directly to UK energy security, warning that delays or rejection could deepen winter fuel shortages and arguing that domestic North Sea production should be approved urgently. The project is part of a wider British debate over how to balance near-term gas supply with legally binding climate goals, as the government faces pressure to justify any new fossil fuel development under tighter environmental scrutiny. The Jackdaw decision matters beyond a single offshore field because the North Sea remains one of the United Kingdom's main domestic sources of oil and gas, even as output has declined over recent decades. Any approval would test how far London is willing to support new upstream production while maintaining its climate commitments. Shell's revised filing appears designed to meet that legal and political threshold by pairing a narrower climate argument with a warning about household and industrial energy supply. The European Union's climate monitor said on July 9th that Western Europe recorded its hottest June since modern records began, after an intense late-month heatwave pushed temperatures to exceptional levels across multiple countries. The monitor said a heat dome built over the region near the end of June, trapping hot air over the world's fastest-warming continent and helping drive record-breaking conditions in several areas of Western Europe. The June milestone followed a burst of extreme heat at the end of the month that broke temperature records in many countries. Europe has been identified as the fastest-warming continent, and a June record of this scale matters because early summer heat can strain health systems, energy networks, water supplies, and agriculture before the hottest part of the season has fully arrived. The Climate Monitor's assessment also linked the heatwave pattern to broader climate change, reinforcing scientific warnings that global warming is making hot spells more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting. For governments across Western Europe, the new June record is not only a monthly statistic, but also an operational warning as officials weigh heat health measures, infrastructure resilience, and wildfire preparedness during what could become another punishing summer. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.